Hey, and welcome to the Drive Your Line podcast. This is where we talk about everything karting, all aspects, chassis, engines, manufacturers, rules, races, series, and so much more. Be sure to come back and listen. Hey, welcome back to the Drive Your Line podcast. I'm your host, Christy Cox. Yeah, it's Christy Cox, just
Hey,
Christy Cox. And Stacy Wargo's going, oh my gosh, she said Cox. But anyway, we have a big show. We have a lot to go over, a lot of information for the industry. Xander Clements is the man with the plan joining us, just fresh back from Vegas. And I apologize for the slight delay. We were just basically screwing off. But anyway, we got everybody dialed in. We're definitely ready for the P1 position. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Just a little bit of update from the industry. Obviously, we have entries open for Apex. We have entries open for Daytona. I'm sure CKNA South should be open soon. If they probably are open. Remember that their schedule kind of dropped a little bit late, but the CKNA South event at Jacksonville is on. That is right after the Daytona event at DIS with WKA Kart Week. And we look forward to a good turnout there. Then they turn around and they go to Biloxi. Obviously, they're going to Bushnell again this year, which is great. They haven't been back there in a while. And then they're going to Daytona. So they have 4 great venues that they'll be hitting this year. Apex will be going to NOLA Motorsports Park. It's nice to see events going back there again. It's a beautiful facility. We will not be there. We were dedicated to Daytona and the enormous amounts of prep they have to go into that event. We run on the big track, not on the sprint track when we go to Daytona. So we kind of take all of that preparation pretty serious. SCUSA just concluded this past week, and it was a very eventful event from start to finish. I mean, from green to checker. There was action everywhere on the track in every class, some good, some bad. The SCUSA officials definitely had their work cut out for them, and we'll go over a lot of what happened there with Xander. He was obviously boots on the ground, and he has an inside look as to how it all functioned, it flowed, and what all happened. It was a lot of struggle for a lot of people. We had a lot of international flair and a lot of international competitors, so we're always happy to see those guys show up. But also, with all of that, brings a little different set of challenges for everyone. And if that wasn't enough, Mother Nature helped us out with a torrential downpour that flooded a good part of Las Vegas the week before the F1 race, which is coming up this weekend. So, without any further ado, we are going to bring in the man with the plan, Xander Clements.
thank you. Thanks for having me, Christy.
Hey, I've been wanting to do this one for a while. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I'm sure that we could talk for hours between your experience in the karting world and the rest of the industry. But I want to hear about you. I want to hear about your karting career, how that all developed, transformed into Kart Chaser. So let's start with your career first.
Yeah, my career was a later start. It wasn't by choice. I always knew that I wanted to get into racing. The earliest bits of racing that I had, or that, I could tie in is a couple different ways. Some of my earliest memories are watching NASCAR races with my dad and my extended family on get-togethers and just watching, the Cup Series with my dad. He was a big Jeff Gordon fan. My whole family's big Hendrick Motorsports fans because of that. Early on, one of the earliest stories that I could tell anyone about wanting to race or be a driver was I was babysat early on. I'm the oldest of 5, but my parents were both working when I was born and the first of my younger siblings was born. So we were babysat by my grandparents on both sides quite a bit. And on my dad's side, I had a couple older cousins, and one of them had a Power Wheels monster truck. I don't remember this obviously, but my late grandmother on my dad's side, she loved to tell this story. My dad loves to tell this story, that I was crying and pleading as a toddler to want to drive the truck, but I couldn't reach the pedal. Little Power Wheels monster truck, just a gas pedal. And so after I think it was about a month of crying and pleading, bless her soul, she went and took her walking cane and would walk next to the truck to be able to push down the pedal so I could steer it around the little driveway. And ever since was hooked. But being in a big family, and my parents have done, amazing for two people that unfortunately didn't get to finish college. It was never really going to be in the cards, to go racing at any kind of level, much less even a high level, like the events that we broadcast now. But that didn't, deter me as a kid. I was making PowerPoints when I was 8 years old, pitching to my parents about quarter midgets and bandoleros and go-karts and everything in between. And we eventually did, some indoor karting camps over the summer, at the original Andretti Indoor Karting Center in Roswell. And these were great deals for getting the kids out the house and for kids that just wanted to drive. Because at the time, the place would open at maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. The camp was 9 to 5 for Monday through Friday. So you'd get a ton of sessions through the day. You'd probably be driving 5, maybe 8 sessions a day in an unlimited arcade card. It was
That's
heaven.
awesome.
So we did a bunch of those, and I actually had emailed the director of the league. He's still very much involved. His name's Chris McCoy. He runs endurance karting now. At the time, he was just organizing the rental leagues there. TJ Halsma from Simcraft, right around
Yeah.
that same era, was involved, and I'd emailed them, emailed Chris directly, asking if he'd make a junior class. I think he was taken aback by the email that I was as young as I was, and he's like, "Well, if you were 14 or 13, we could let you in, but you're only 10." So we can't let you run with the adults. And I don't know if I want to deal with daddy ball with the kids classes, but about a year later, eventually did do a junior division. We did that. I did a couple seasons of it. I won the semi-pro one. Actually, the trophies are back here. I don't have a lot of trophies from my career, but this one spring, summer of 2011, when I won the headline little rental league. And then we did about a year gap, saved up, went down to Steve and Stacy Roberts at Roberts Kart Shop in Georgia. And at the time, AMP wasn't finished. So growing up in Georgia, the only road course track was Barnesville. And we bought a cart from them and ran Clone Junior when I was just about 12, I guess, going on 13, for the end of the 2012 season into the 2013 season, about midway there in the summer. We gave that cart to the oldest of my younger siblings, Carson, who actually was with us working the Supernats. Also, he was super key. He was the main replay final product broadcast guy for all the racing action. He's
He
phenomenal. Yeah, super busy. And did local racing there. And at my first race, Bob Bartholomew from GSK was he was racing 206 senior. He was, on the board. I don't remember if that year he was president or not, but he would hop in the booth and he would announce. And,
And
he
Bob
wasn't
got
on
the
track.
voice for it.
He did. And my first race, there's 12 run groups, and, we didn't know what we were doing. We even picked road course karting because we figured if we were, out to lunch mechanically, maybe if we had a few more turns, the driver could make up for it a little bit, because we knew we weren't going to be able to get there on our own working on the thing. Yeah, there was a lot of downtime. So I asked Bob if I could go up and announce a few sessions, and at 12 years old, he let me, and then everybody liked it. So that let me continue to announce in between the sessions as I was racing there. Then as my brother was just running the club stuff there, and we started doing some national stuff, I kept doing it. It led to Chip Bearing and the whole club then saying, "Hey, when we do the vintage race, we'll pay you $75." And now, mind you, we lived about an hour 45 from Barnesville, so $75, 30 of it was in gas, but I got paid. So I went down and did that was my first ever commentary paid gig. It's where I met Lynn Haddock and Lake Speed and a bunch of legends for the first time. Later that year, the Gold Cup series from WK was coming to Barnesville. Their announcer couldn't make it. And Steve and Stacy, to their credit, they said, "Look, if you're coming here, whether you had a guy or not, we will put up the money to pay this kid to be here to be your announcer for the weekend. You need to hire him." And that weekend went good. WK paid me. They didn't need to put Steve and Stacy on the spot, but it was nice of them to offer. That led to Daytona in December of, I guess it would have been December 2015, heading into the 16 season. And from that weekend, things spiraled pretty quickly. And kind of also going back a little bit in parallel, along with wanting to get into karting and getting into racing, period, in real life, when I was 8 or 9 years old, there's videos still on YouTube if you look them up. I was teased in my teenage years, so I unfortunately deleted a bunch of them, and I wish that I didn't. But I made a bunch of stop motion animations with my diecast cars and would announce them and edit them all the way from when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And that led to when I was 11 years old, setting up a sim racing league, officiating, coordinating it, working on Google Sheets to build the schedule and making a forum and a website and streaming it, believe it or not, too, doing all those things. And there's clips of that too from when I was 11 and ran that till I was about 15 or 16. Still kind of was involved running some leagues around that time too. So was doing a lot virtually because we could only get to so many races. And pretty quickly, knew that again, we were, I tell everyone that I think if the 206 package was around, if AMP was at the size that it's at now, and even Barnesville where it's at now had, healthy numbers, I think we would have been very happy for me, my family, my dad, to just race, 206 club stuff. And I think budget wise, by the end, as we got to learn things, doing it on our own, we probably could have managed that, but that wasn't really an option. So I wanted to race more people and said if I raced 3 times a year against 20 people, I'd do that over 10 times a year against 2 or 3 people. And through the sim racing connections, I met a bunch of friends that are now, well far along, or still involved in racing one way or another. I think I know more people in NASCAR from my sim racing days than I do from my karting days now. And obviously from both karting and sim racing, I know a lot in the open wheel and sports car world. And I started doing a handful of national events, did USPKS in 2014, did Daytona Kart Week at the end of 2013 as a driver. We didn't do the last USPKS of the 2014 season. So through the whole career, it was a couple of races a year and always just one race shy of actually doing a full championship, even if it was 3 or 4 rounds. And right as I was around 14 or 15 and pushing to 16, was just wanting to be around it more. I read every article you could find from Rob and Dave at VKA-Fall to Kart 360 when it was going at that era. And just immersed myself in it because I just wanted to be there so bad. And that led, that drive got me to also, have my only job I ever filled out a job application for and got accepted for, which was to work at AMP as a marshal, and then, kind of shift lead and pit steward, and then race director and series club and tech director for the club karting series and club Miata series, and was doing that quite a bit along with instructing their schools when I was 16 and 17 years old, along with, where I could chipping in and helping in at the local shop, that helped support me and race me at more events than I could have gotten to on my own. And then obviously announcing, I got up to, I think, around 20 something events by 2017, maybe 25 or so.
Oh, wow.
And structured my whole school schedule around it too. Got into dual enrollment in high school in my junior year, really for a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest ones was I could do Monday and Wednesday night classes, and Tuesday, Thursday morning, I could fly out Thursday afternoon, fly back in Monday night and go work a race weekend, or go work at the track all 3 days, Friday through Sunday. So, shifted everything about just trying to be around it more. And, that led to being able to go from 2 to 4 races a year to 5 to 6 races a year. And through that, through the announcing, through working at Atlanta Motorsports Park, led to a connection with Eric Jones, who knew me back from a couple of years ago because we raced on aero carts, but he was importing, and I had a couple buddies that raced for his team. So, kind of loosely knew each other and got to know each other more as I'd come up to announce the club races at Trackhouse. And when he got the lease for AMR Homestead Miami Motorplex in spring of 2017, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I think right as I was reading the press release, maybe it was over the summer the release came out, was reading the press release on my lunch break at AMP, and he calls me. He goes, "Hey, you see what just came out?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You want to come down there? I'm kind of looking for a number 2 guy." And I was like, "Wow, that's full time. I'm going through school. I'm just turned 18. Was tracking to get my bachelor's done at 19, and still had a full year of college left for my business degree." And I was like, "Well, I need to ask my mom and my dad about moving down there and going to work there full time." And it was also in the midst of doing a small finance internship too. And through all that, mom and dad have been supportive the whole way, of me traveling on my own at a very young age to go and work and to be around it, and knew that this was what I wanted to do. And, I thought this would be pretty cool. And so the idea was to go there for 2 to 3 years, and kind of see what opportunities would then, be with his conglomerate of companies, between Miami East and MG and the two tracks at that point, and see where things were. And during that time, went down there with actually the owner of the team that I drove for in Georgia too, Darren Tebby, who's still down there to this day as the GM down at the Homestead track. And it was kind of a I'll go if you go type of deal, because neither of us knew anyone down there. And so I went there for 3 years. That was enough time to finish the rest of my degree from Kennesaw State University online. I actually only really went there in person for 2 years. And I finished that by the second year, and the third year was kind of a figure things out a little bit. And I ended up doing a whole lot of homework and, definitely a lot of soul searching of what I wanted to do. And, I figured I could stay there. I could go take my degree and go get an outside of racing job and make racing more of a hobby. And in both cases, I was like, all I think about is all these things that I think I could do, or that could be done, to make some opportunities that I wished I would have had when I was younger, being in karting and in racing. And I've got no debt, a little bit of savings, and a lot of time. So we'll throw something at the wall and see what sticks. And here we are, and figured if I was 25 and it went up, then I was 25 and it went up, went up in smoke. And I'm 27 now. We're not up in smoke yet, but it definitely
Oh,
feels like it
you're
at
not.
certain days. So, end of that third year, I was getting ready to turn 22. And, yeah, there's a lot more details to that too, that I'm leaving out, and some fun bits and stories for sure. But in a gist, my racing career was kind of always a really part-time schedule. And in that time, up until Kart Chaser, I had accrued basically 5 years of track management experience from, understanding rental carts and rental cart group events and general operations to racing events and tech. And, I wrote a whole rule book cover to cover for AMP that I actually disagree with, but I wrote it when I was 16 and I was running the series. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with things they put in writing or the ways they thought when they were 16. But, uh, obviously got to see a whole lot of the team aspect and the kart shop aspect, not necessarily directly ever working for one, but basically trading my time and helping one and volunteering, so I could race a little more. I got to understand that. Also officiated quite a bit through the 2020 and 2021 seasons. We were getting going with the US Pro Kart Series as an assistant race director, and on that team, helped from the get-go with the Sunshine State Karting Challenge Florida Series, and that's now going to be fading away to make room for the FLKC. But during that 3 years I was with Homestead, I was at all those events, and then the club series. So I kind of got to see a little bit of tracks, series, shops, individuals, driver coaches, and tuners and whatnot, and get to dip my toes in everyone and all those areas. And with all of that perspective in mind, I think, if we did this, then it would help everybody and be able to shoot down a lot of ideas before I'd have to screen them by someone of, no, this wouldn't work for this reason, or this wouldn't work for this reason. And, even Kart Chaser altogether is a primer company that we can get to as we go on KC side specifically, but the first step towards where I really think we can go. So it's just, it's blossomed and ballooned and gone definitely in more ways than we originally planned it to. I mean, believe it or not, live streaming was never part of the original game plan with Kart Chaser actually altogether from day one. So that was something that derailed, I guess, or delayed some of those other project ideas I've had. But it's been a wild ride, with a lot of really cool lucky breaks from a lot of cool people for sure.
So when did Kart Chaser, the actual live streaming, when did you wake up and go, "Oh, we need to do this"?
I didn't. See that's the funny part, right? So the idea behind it originally was I really wanted to take the experience that I had and the little bit that I knew, especially when it came on the digital front, to marketing and promoting, much less just general ops, of helping a lot of club tracks grow. And I had a variety of different ideas beyond just the club racing series to do that, but I didn't want to show up anywhere and you know have to not necessarily have to prove myself, but not be known. And so I figured if we did a variety of different videos on a personal branding side that showed me working as an official for this series, working as a promoter's assistant or whatever, and everything I just listed before, doing a variety of videos on that front, and also just laying the baseline of marketing and promoting, the racing at the top level. At the time, you know, all of the promo materials and videos and everything, even the live streams themselves, were very macro and not very micro, right? They were trying to appease everyone and cover everything. And, that last year at Homestead, I spent a lot of time studying what's worked for sports and different leagues in the last 20 years or so, the growth of the UFC versus boxing, MLB kind of stagnating. And then now they've actually started to have a bit of an upswing. Obviously, the NFL's growth, the NBA's growth, while the NHL has had good numbers, but it's never really broken through kind of a glass ceiling, if you will. And obviously the racing series, right? F1 is what everybody points to, and it's the epitome of, it's not so much the raw product, it's the packaging.
Yeah.
And so the videos that we did that were branded Kart Chaser was meant to be one of those personal brand video series that we're going to pick a couple of marquee classes, the classes that I knew from visually being an announcer drew the most people to the grandstands, to the fence, and to watch. And from all the years I had announcing and racing, having the personal relationship with the drivers to get their, in a short 30-second interview, get their personality out there, and taking a quote from Triple H during a WWE documentary that I had watched, again, on their growth too, which has been exceptional, saying, look, we're not a wrestling company. We're a company that builds superheroes and supervillains, and they clash. And to me, modern day sports marketing across the board, racing included, is no different. It's just, it's not a
It's
black and
exactly that.
white villain or hero. It's just gray, but you're just trying to uniquely personify all the characters and drivers that you have. So that's what we did at those videos. And then we would actually make sure that the highlight reel was, cor- uh, um, in like it showed you everything that happened in their main. And then so we did that for a year. We would do little videos kind of on the side as well to cover a little bit of everybody, but tried to keep the focus small, tried to make it so a general viewer didn't have to learn too many names. It wasn't too widespread. They could get hooked in, and know who's who, and root for someone to win or root for someone to lose. And at the end of the day, if they're wanting, an outcome some way, they're going to watch how that outcome comes together. But then in June of 2021, so we're not quite a year in yet, because we started at the double summer nats after COVID in August of 2020 doing those videos. Eric comes to me and he says, hey, first year we're doing Miami Grands. Kevin Harvick has done a great job. We've got a couple partners in, between his ties and Justin Marks' ties. We could go to NBC, and at the time with NBC Sports, now it probably would have been Peacock, do a 30-minute little special. Or I told, all of them that you're the only guy doing video media right now on our sport. Do you know how to stream? And I said, no, but I'll try. And he's like, all right, the budget's this. So I said, okay. So I wanted to do it at a high level. So we sold some extra ads on top. We actually sold t-shirts on top at the first event, just enough to get by. And in a matter of about 4 weeks, through YouTube tutorials, phone calls, rented gear, buddies I had met along the way, buddies I'd known for a while to staff it, pulled it off. It went way better than it ever should have. The
Yeah, love
only
that.
the only thing that didn't work was Wednesday night we were trying to do a live podcast at Connor Zillish's house, his parents' house, and I forgot one piece that I needed, a critical piece for the whole setup to go onto the feed. Drove back to the track. On the way back from the track, after getting the piece, blew a tire. Trevor came over, said, here, fix the tire, take my car, took his car, got back. We're an hour behind. I'm rushing, and I grabbed the wrong part. So we still didn't work. But Thursday on, for the actual race event, it went on better than it ever should have. And by Monday of that next week, I had inquiries from everybody about how it would work and how we could do it. And quickly that led to it. So it was yeah, I'll try. And then, oh wow, it worked. Oh wow, everybody wants to do it. I guess we got to figure out how to do it. And then by 2022, 6 months or 5 months later from that race at the end of July into August, almost 4 months, I guess, we've got a fully 27 or 30 race calendar booked. So it was a snowball effect very quickly, but not by design at all.
I think that you and I met, um, probably about the same time that you concluded your first Kart Chaser, and it has morphed, and it was so needed for our sport. It's become an integral part of what we do now. I mean, we'll be in the shop, and I can't get a damn thing done because I'm busy watching Kart Chaser. Um, and Alan hates it. My poor husband. But Kart Chaser has become a very pivotal part of the sport for both its information, it's news, the Wednesdays, I mean, all of the little things that you guys do before events, after events, between events, it all keeps everybody in check and focus, and it brings a lot of information to not only the competitors, but their families. I mean, how many grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends of the family are able to watch what their friends are doing because of Kart Chaser? And how many sponsors have you brought into the sport that never would have looked at it any other way? So, Kart Chasers brought a big value to our sport that we otherwise didn't really have.
Yeah, and there were, companies that had tried it in the past. Maybe not fully on the way that we did, but again, I'm big on it's funny. In school, my memory was always pretty good. I never did maybe as much studying as I probably should have to get by with the grades that I did. But in everything I do now, I'm a huge student of the game, of anything that we look at doing. I'm always trying to figure out, why something worked or what didn't work, or see if I can come up with a solution that maybe hasn't been done, but it's an aggregation of a bunch of other things that have been proven to work. And how can we solve this problem that we're in. And so a prime example would be, after that first race, when um, everyone starts calling and I'm running the numbers and going, okay, well, I had to fly this person in to do this and this person in to do
Had to
this to
pass.
get them all paid, right? And uh, pretty quickly it was like, wow, for this to be a business, right? This is that number that came out to everybody had sticker shock. And I knew they were going to. I mean, it was going to be more money than it would be to rent the track, double for any of it to work. It was really cool having Luke Austin, who's one of the two main guys behind Alpha Live. They're a very similar story to us with some differences over in the UK, to ask him what they had to charge to make a decent margin and what their margin was overall, loosely,
Mhm.
to do Kart Masters, which is kind of their Miami Grands pseudo Supernats. It's not to the level of Supernats. I would say it's got more history on that front than Miami Grands, right? It's been around for a while, but it's a big one-off at PFI. It's a couple hundred entries, and for 4 days, I think 4 days, maybe 3 days of streaming. Um, and their number, what they were able to charge with a pretty nice, I wouldn't say nice, but a good margin, is below what our cost would be to do the same thing because of the nature of travel here. That nobody flies. Everyone's able to drive. Most people
Oh,
can go
yeah,
home at night.
everything's close.
So when you factor all that in, it wasn't going to work. And so, uh, and two, it would have been, to get any kind of improvement would have been renegotiating with every series every single year. And it's a branding thing, it's a marketing thing, it's not a sales thing. So, how do you say, well, because we had better looking cameras, or because we had a second, reporter on the ground, or another track camera angle, you all of a sudden got XYZ more entries? You can't. It's a correlation even over years to see the impact of it. Right now, we're starting to see and have for the last year or two, the series that we've been with have all either been extremely stable or grown immensely, across the board. So, but
Well, I
we
think
couldn't
that
prove
Kart
that.
Chasers brought a great deal of value to these
Yeah.
series when it comes to a marketing asset. I know that Kart Chasers helped my particular brand and what we do immensely. I can only imagine how it's affected other people within the industry. I mean, we're just a little peon postage stamp, compared to a lot of the players in the game and a lot of the teams. So, I can't imagine anybody not thinking for a second, "Hey, I wonder if this would benefit me." What kind of growth and information have you received from teams, sponsors, vendors, brands, as far as Kart Chaser and what you can provide to them?
Probably more at the stage that we were, than I thought. It was a couple of years ago. I had a guy come up to me at CKNA Grand saying, "Hey, I had been doing rental carts for a while and came across your guys' content, and here I am a year and a half later after getting into my local club. This is my first big travel event to come run the 206 major, but I got in because of you guys." And not every national team at this point, because the schedule's so busy, have deep local ties. I think they all do to a certain degree, but it varies. But the ones that do have said, yeah, we've actually gotten some people that have found us and bought carts and got into the sport because of us. And I didn't think we were necessarily at that exposure level at that time, or even yet for that matter. I think we still have so much more that we're able to go. And from the series too, right? Like in the very beginning, and even now, this weekend is a prime example of even still adjusting to what the shock to the system of a big spotlight on these events are. In our first year, um, in our first handful of events with a bunch of different promoters, right? When there wasn't any streaming before, and now there is, and everybody can cut their own clips of what they want, of a bad wreck, of a blown call,
Oh, yeah.
of a call they didn't agree with, and put it on social media and put the series on blast. They would have had those angles. Not to mention the people watching along at home. You would have never known that someone wrecked you, Christy, because they wouldn't have been able to watch your race. They just would
Yeah.
have heard your side. But now they're able to watch. Now they're able to watch people they don't even know and um, light the series up, even if the series is right. And that was a lot. And over 4 years of now doing 4 full seasons of this, it's been a very nice and slow progression of the relationship with us, with every series that we work with, especially the ones that we've had the whole way, from trying to get through the teething pains and on our side and on their side, get over what a spotlight does, because it brings a whole lot of negativity when people don't know you directly or personally and are just seeing stuff online. Um, and then to working together on, all right, well, this worked. This idea for this stream worked. What about this? What about this with the event format? And not solely because it's better for streaming, but just, hey, that was a good idea, Xander. That was okay. What else do you have? Because we've been and kind of by design positioned ourselves as not solely a media company, but a third party involved with skin in the game, but no direct skin on either side,
Right.
to the
Unbiased.
table of the series promoters, the teams, the independents, and the customers, and all in between. And that part's been really fun. So uh, I don't think that positive relationship and the amount of involvement that I'm able to get to have, and our company is able to get to have with all these series to grow them and to work with them, happens without them obviously feeling the positive impacts, right? And especially this year, again, branding marketing is a slow burn, as you know, right?
Yep.
You're a marketing gal, you get it. It's not just because you go and put up a billboard doesn't mean tomorrow you get 1,000 new customers at your bake shop, right? But after a little bit of time, that recognition and exposure pays off. And I think this year with the Supernats was an example, selling out in 7 days at the Speedway, right? Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
we first went to the Speedway in 2021 and left the strip, everyone was like, well, we had to do it because you couldn't get into the Rio, but this sucks. And that still was the narrative and still is kind of a bit of a downbeat. But I was telling the SCUSA crew as well on my way out, I was like, look, for 3 years now consecutively, we have been off site from what made this event so fun for everyone to go to. And yet the entries have either been the same or more in a quicker time. Like people are still wanting to go. When they go back to the strip, and they're eventually going to get back to the strip at some point, it's just a matter of finding the right lot. They all want to go
Right.
back.
Right.
I
Finding the
don't
right
know how
lot
they're going to
at the
fit them.
right price at the right price point. That real estate's really expensive.
It is. It is. But I think that no matter what the price is, I think that they would have 1,000 entries. I don't know how they'd fit them. I think that's where they're at now is if they do get a deal together with the Rio, that would probably have to include repaving that parking lot. You're going to have 900 people banging down the doors of registration in August, because you had 700 nearly trying to get in August of this year at the Speedway.
Ooh,
So, yeah, everyone's over time gotten more and more positive. And I say over time, not like it took everybody 4 years to realize that exposure was going to be positive, but figuring out how to work with it and all of these unexpected, whoa, I didn't think I would have to deal with this type of situation or even just new topic and category, because of the wider reach beyond the people watching on the fence line has been new for us. It's been new for the series. There's been growing pains. It's been new for teams too. Drivers, there, because I, from the jump and even still now, try to remind everyone that we work with directly when it comes to the people that we put on screen, that we muzzle them more than we spin anything. If we were a true media company, there is a lot more raunchy stuff we could absolutely try and go to for clickbait. But I actually hold our guys way back, and our guys hold themselves back in a lot of cases to help them, because the idea is the next thing and not building up what we currently have. I say currently as building a media company. There's so much more with the sport down the line to go, that for us, this is not about just trying to get a million clicks to get a million clicks here.
And we like that you have kept that standard.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to cut you off, but we got a lot of
No, you're
questions.
good.
So,
You got a lot.
of course, we got Derek Wargo. By the way, he missed his bowling night, so he didn't get his butt whipped by his wife. But I have here, are any of the branded chassis manufacturers helping Kart Chaser for all of the promoting that you do for them?
If you're talking all the way up to the factory level, no, but at the same point, I started this in that third year at Homestead on the premise of I had two personal goals that was going to make me feel fulfilled, right? One was to grow more local karting communities, because I would, like I said at the beginning, I would have loved to be able to have 20 go-karts in a 206 class and all age groups, and been a very happy club racer my whole karting career. That unfortunately wasn't the case at the time when I came up. The numbers were a bit small at Barnesville. AMP at the time was very new, and it only had senior classes, and they weren't nearly to the size they are now. We didn't have Music City, Kartplex, and the amazing year they've had. So there weren't any options for that. So that was one half. And the other half was wanting to try and make opportunities for drivers that don't have billions of dollars to chase the F1 dream, much less even the IndyCar and IMSA dream. And the best ladder series are ones that are strong enough to stand on their own. It's why guys go to the Cars late model tour and not try to go to ARCA. They'll go to ARCA if they have to for just enough races to get speedway experience. But if you're really trying to go and learn circle track racing, you want to go to the Cars tour. Why? Because there's like full-time veterans there.
Right.
And so in the karting realm, right, the second goal, besides wanting to build the local communities, is bring enough exposure, bring enough return on investment for these brands that they're going to reinvest, because they already are sponsoring drivers at varying degrees to go and win. And as much as I'd love to say, yeah, they should be throwing just a check our way to, buy advertising, and all of them have from time to time, the best advertising any of those brands can do is to win. And so if we're creating an environment where there's more and more driver funded seats that become available, and paid seats even, which was unheard of 10 years ago,
Yep.
stateside, then to me, I count that as those guys are supporting the races that, and supporting us, in the same way. I was texting, especially like even earlier today, Mika Lemasurier, the Aussie kid in our X30 who debuted with BJR.
Yep. Yep.
One off, incredible, fast all week. Had a motor problem in the third heat, started 20-30, drove to sixth, and he was like, man, I don't have a lot. Like, this is a lot for us to get here, but I want to be here. I'd do anything to be here. If there's anyone looking for someone, let me know. And there's a lot of kids like him, right? There's you and I talk at length about all the drivers that our heart bleeds for. So if we're creating an environment where those guys are getting more chances to play race car driver longer and longer on, and maybe even a career through their 20s, then I count that as the manufacturers putting in help. So, maybe they're not on paper cutting a check to me, but if they're doubling down on the investment or adding more effort into the US racing period, because in part of us doing what we're doing, I count that as them investing. And I think you've seen that with the various brands that have made big pushes in the last couple of years. Sodi, Burrell Art has always been big, but they've been very good with theirs. I could list this. We could go on and on about the different brands that are putting more and more effort into trying to be at these races and win on these big stages. So to me, I count that as that, even though that's not necessarily them putting money in my pocket per se.
Okay, next question. My husband Any possibility of doing something for road racing?
Road racing's different. Um,
It's a different animal. It's a lot of property, that's a lot of area to cover. And to do a road race, it's more about the culture than the actual
100%.
racing.
The scale of it doesn't always make the most sense, right? Also, road racing as an on-track product, and not to knock on road racers and get the mob at me, right? But it's not going to have that same shock and awe value that the sprint racing will have, right? The
Right.
races are twice as long, they're a little more spread out. And with the sprint racing stuff, it's very easy to see on the viewership numbers as well. You
It's
know, your
nonstop
marquee
action.
classes, and here's your pyramid, and you kind of push this way, and this is how you market them and down. So it's different. But you and I have talked at length about it. I've talked with a couple other big names in the road racing world about it. I think the best way if we were to do anything would be to come out and do a vlog, have me, or if not me, just have different people throw some onboard cameras on and go experience a weekend and put some content out that way. Um, but all of our social content is a spin-off to um, push the overall exposure of the races that we're broadcasting, right? So it's not like I have this budget to just go and send a filmer here and make a video, and the video is going to pay for the couple $1,000s to pay for those people. I'll give you guys a little insider baseball. Supernat's Sunday live stream, right? 83,000 views right now. You want to take a guess at how much money YouTube pays for that? Less
Uh,
than $500.
oh my gosh.
So, and that is the biggest race in the world and the biggest stream we've ever hit. Um, so you're not gonna have
A big payday there.
no, it's not gonna pay for itself off just doing a video. So there's a lot that goes into it. But if we could make room with the time, at least to cover the cost of the people to go there, film it, and edit it after the fact, I would love to do something to help that
'Kay.
aspect.
Next question. Regardless of what Christy says, I really enjoy and appreciate what you do. My husband's getting a beating. Um, let's see here. Deanne Gallagher. Deanne, by the way, is working on marketing decks for us and several other drivers and teams right now. She does phenomenal work. If you want to look her up, she is Poison Apple Graphic Studio. She's amazing. You can contact me for her information. Anyway, her question is, what advice, and we got to be quick. I got another show coming in here. What advice would you give to young racers about social media, and finding and keeping sponsors? Ooh,
Never be too snooty to take a free or discount code or whatever just to get your foot in the door with a sponsor. That's I think the first thing. Even if it's just a sticker on the car and they're not actually giving you anything, the sooner you can start doing that, the better. Because yeah, it would be really nice if someone gave you $500 or $1,000 or tens of thousands to go racing tomorrow, but you're probably going to need it more up the ladder than you need it right now. And so if right now you can put in the same effort as if they were a $50,000 sponsor by just throwing their sticker on, go for it. Some of our first ever sponsors were laughably low or full on trade. And by having a sponsor on our program, on our shirts, on our products, on everything, that led to other outside sponsors going, "Hey, how much does it cost to get that spot?" And then before you know it, because you're doing such a good job for this free sponsor that you have, that nobody has to know that they're, not giving you anything, you're going to get real offers. And to get that first one, again, that's you go to any business owner and you offer them free exposure. Hey, I'd love to just put your sticker on. I'm not asking for anything. Um, that's the best way to get started. And then from a social media standpoint, and I'll keep this one short too, but study. Just here's the thing about like when it comes to social media, everyone's selling a class or doing any kind of course or scholarship, whatever. Like you can see what they're doing by just going to the pages. Everyone's open gutted. You can look at exactly what we do, how we post these videos, these images, these graphics this way, this way. Everyone's guts are fully out there. So you don't need to pay for anything. You just need to go and look at what's working for other people and find a way to kind of do it your way. And eventually, once you figure out stuff that sticks and stuff that works and is given return, then there you go.
So, Alex Petrie, we appreciate what Kart Chaser is doing, not only bringing light to the sport, but providing footage, but also for families that aren't able to travel and support their loved ones. It's actually cheaper to watch on Kart Chaser than travel across the country and pay an entry fee to watch.
Yeah, that's
Very
uh That's true. It's also it's a good and bad thing, right? Like, from the get-go, this has been about trying to grow the sport, right? So if we're hurting revenue in any way, that's not ideal. But that also is a great testament to going, okay, let's start finding ways to make it where families that come to these events like find value in it.
Well,
If
I think in Alex's case, he's a local racer at Moore Park in Louisiana, and, their kids are watching Kart Chaser, and I've seen them go from that local kart racer at the local club and going to TSRS and attending other CK&A events, and actually, they see it on TV, that's where we wanna go, and so I think that brings a lot of value to these families because they kinda get to see what it's all about before they are involved in it. Then we have our friend Lucas. When will Kart Chaser host its where is that? Oh, when will Kart Chaser host its first race a year, quote, "All-Star Weekend," unquote. Invite the top 10 from Stars, SCUSA, USPKS, Grands, no CK&A, Lucas, come on. And he wants to have it at Music City, of course. What do you
well,
think about that idea?
when he says grands, he might be referencing CKNA,
Yeah, or Miami.
or Miami, either way. Yeah, uh, That's, spectator type events like that are where we wanna go, is what we're building towards. This podcast, obviously, it needs to be short, so there's no time for an announcement or a detailed
Oh,
brainstorm
buddy,
on
we're
it,
gonna
but,
do this again. Don't think you're off the hook just yet.
yeah, here we go. But no, no, nothing yet. There's a whole lot of events right now, there's a lot on the calendar, and, uh yeah, I guess you could
Lucas,
put TBD
we'll
on
have
that.
to
I wouldn't
tag
say we're
team you.
ever never gonna do something. We got really close to being able to do something this past year. It's gotta be smart, it's gotta be right, it's gotta be something that doesn't disrupt anything. That's to me the
Right.
biggest key if we do anything. Um, and I've been very clear with all the series promoters on that I wanna be able to do some other experimental stuff, just like streaming was experimental, and everything that we do with our media is experimental.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to feel threatened or mess anything up in any way. So it needs to be really smart the way that we do it. But I don't have an announcement if that's what he's looking for.
So one last point. What do you think about all of the schedules that are coming out? We don't have an off season. We're racing now all through the winter. And it leaves very little downtime, very, very small window for these families to recoup both financially and time-wise. I mean, there's a lot of people I talk to, "Man, we haven't been home long enough to mow the darn yard. We haven't we had to come home and do laundry. Our animals haven't seen us in 3 weeks." Um, when is too much when is too much too much? And when is what we're seeing now a benefit? Because right now, I mean, I had 3 people call me today, "Are you guys going to Apex?" No. Daytona is in December, and we're taking our customers, and we're on a track that if you screw up one nut, one bolt, somebody really gets messed up. So it's attention to detail for us for, from now until that event. And unfortunately, that takes December out of the calendar for us. And that's 7 to 8 competitors that won't be going to an event that they would have liked to, but commitments had already been made. What do you think about all the calendars?
Um, you know, the market speaks, right? It doesn't really matter too much what I think or what you think or what anyone else thinks for that matter. If the entries aren't going to be there, that they won't be, and the events won't be as well, right? Unfortunately, the CKNA race they were looking to put together at Speed Sports, in about 4 weeks away, they had to pull back on. Said, hey, you know what? We would
Yeah.
like to get out to Texas, but the market's not, not the market's not ready, right? But they need to find a good gap where there'll be enough people to show up. But at the end of the day, like everyone thought in especially the major three series, and probably to even to looking at CKNA's growth to four majors now: Winter Nats, Spring Nats, Summer Nats, and Grands, and then in the big three, right? Stars, SCUSA, and USPKS. That man, there's not going to be room for three of them here in a little bit. Oh well, it was just the COVID boom in 21. We had room. Well, we're still feeling that the economy's good in 22, and here we are at the end of the 2025 season and all three had record years. If not record, still phenomenal 200 plus. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
is it really tough for everyone in the industry right now to figure out a way for this high demand touring series schedule, regional schedule, and club schedules and everything all to fit? Yeah, it's tricky. Um, but people want to race at all these different levels. Now, what I will say on the customer side, if you go look at the podiums from these races, from Supernats, take the Masters classes, for example, take even some of the guys that got up there in senior. Race Liberante hadn't run a race in over a year.
Yeah, been gone for a while.
Adam Brickley finished second in one of the X30 heats in one of the most trying conditions on a best cart, which is a very new brand, very unknown brand. He'd only raced, I think, Miami Grands this year. There are countless stories like that where guys with very limited experience, 2, 3, 4 weekends, no different than myself, that are still able to perform at a high level and get into the front of the field. Is it harder? Absolutely. But does a kid need to run 15 national race weekends, or can they get away with getting onto the podium and running up front in 5 or 7 and making up for those lost 10 race weekends with a whole lot of testing at home or local racing? Absolutely. So there's a pressure of keeping up with the Joneses from all fronts, teams and individuals alike, but you don't need to. I think. I think you can make up for it with seat time elsewhere. And so right now we're in this point where our sport is booming and it's stressing everybody, but it's not stressing everyone. There's not enough demand. We just haven't all quite figured out how to handle it for what works for our businesses yet. And that's just going to come with time.
When you go to these events, have you seen differences in the production of the event, how it handles on the ground before Kart Chaser and how it handles on the ground now that Kart Chaser's on the grounds and helping them? What kind of differences are you seeing within these series?
Um, I don't know how much is solely because of us being there. I think probably, well, it's hard to say because it correlates with me, but I was involved with some of them at varying degrees before Kart Chaser started too, right? So,
Mhm.
if you just go on the premise of, oh, do they talk to me about this X, Y, or Z? Then yeah, but they also were talking to me when I was the race official working for them,
Right.
or when I just had known the guys and was the track hosting them when they'd come in. Um, I'm more regularly in those conversations now, but I don't know. I think there's little nuances, but I'm also very particular to not disturb the race day way too much, because when Lucas, for example, talks about a fun all-star event, right? Like everything in the sport right now, I mean, even the last question talk about how fragile everybody's business model is.
Mhm.
I'm very cognizant of that and don't want to mess anything up for the sake of seeing if it might do a little better on stream numbers, or because um, it might do better in some other aspect. I don't want to burn anything up trying to build a new. Um, so little things like, okay, if we're going to do driver introductions, all right, we'll just, we're not going to go on the time schedule. We're going to fire the engines once the last driver gets back to his go-kart. If we're going to do a little grid walk, all right, we'll wait on that. If we're going to do the national anthem, we want to make sure, that's filmed well. So there's a lot of coordination, I guess, like a dance, but I don't think we've done a ton differently. And then I think what happens more so is the conversations after the event about the next one, um, and what we can do on our side better to help show everything and show everybody's efforts, from the series to the teams to the individual side. Like the series trying to make it a clean race, the teams trying to make it clean, individuals trying to do their best, and vice versa. Any feedback that we have with them, because again, kind of we're this, not because we're the media, but because we're this kind of third party that has so many natural interactions with both sides of the fence line.
Yeah.
um, I don't know if a lot's necessarily different from the event side because we're there.
So, one last point. We got about 6, 7 minutes here. Tell us about SCUSA, because I mean, from the outside looking in, what we saw on TV, I mean, we've all got our own opinions, right? And some of it was kind of hairy and scary. Some of it was extremely exciting. And obviously the weather played a big dramatic play. What's your take on that event? And since when you were boots on the ground, too, you guys got to watch it over and over again. I'm sure you guys played a lot of replay. And I'm sure that there were quite a few penalties. I could only imagine the amount of responsibility that the SCUSA officials had in going through all of the film footage and looking at calls and making the right assessment and making sure that scoring and timing was done at the end of all of the penalties being levied. What was your take on that event?
Well, I think it is the perfect testament. Well, okay, there's a couple probably major points, right? If you want to talk the on track racing product, um, it is actually a really good look in the mirror about some of the uh really stupid decisions that the FIA is trying to do across the board. Um, well founded to make things safe, but at a certain point, racing is only ever going to be so safe. I say that to say that in talking with Neil and what they wanted to do with the track this year, it's very similar to how they've done it over every iteration of Supernats. You can see this in the trends of the track layouts they had over the years. They would wipe the slate clean, do a brand new layout, and then they would kind of make adjustments to it to improve on it, improve the safety, maybe improve the raceability for another year or two. So you kind of have 2 or 3 years with a similar layout. Honestly, from like 2009 to about 2014 at the Rio was actually very for quite a few years, like a very similar track design. And that was kind of because they were boxed in. The lot is shaped odd. Um, but in making it safer to lap, it made it where the drivers were able to go side by side more often, safer. And you saw just as many hairy moments or wrecks, but probably at higher speeds. From a raceability standpoint, and you see this with the number of penalties, Pro Shifter and Master Shifter were the two classes with the lowest number of penalties. The next class was double. KA classes and X30 classes were 6 times as many total penalties as the two shifter classes. That track, I think, was amazing for shifter racing. And I think also it reminded me a lot of 2 years ago, where on Sunday, the main events on a very simple 2023 layout were amazing. And I think the Sunday main events were, for the most part, pretty good. But what you have is, for one, a very wide and flowing and fast track for single speed at the lower horsepower classes where the drivers just can't get away from each other. Everyone has a good motor, good enough. They're going to tell you that someone else had a better one. Everyone's going to have a good go-kart. Everyone's on fresh equipment. Everyone's a good driver at the front of the field. So what's left to separate them, right? Like, the tougher the traffic is to navigate, the more crashes you'll naturally have in those tricky spots, like the chicane that wasn't there. But you take that out and you have them more all at the same speed, and you just have straightaways with the draft that keeps them together. And what's that last little difference? Well, it's the jockeying for position, or, you know, maybe getting away with a little bit of incidental contact that you're not sure if you will, but you got lucky with it. Or if you didn't, then it still hurt the other guy. And you just watch two guys get into each other. One got a penalty, one went in the wall, and you picked up spots that way. So
So how many penalties are you at liberty to say how many penalties there were?
unofficially, I'm going to go on it because we did the tally. 765.
Woo!
It's a lot. So, yeah, I'll say that on the track. You can only get so safe. And I think this year, trying to make things safe made it wider, racier, and it was probably arguably a little bit less safe than maybe years before. And not that the track itself wasn't safe, but by making the track safer, the racers took more risks, and the end product was that it was a little bit less safe to be a part of. In terms of them running the event, man, they were tested just like we were.
Yeah.
I think people don't understand how many layers there are, how many people, and how organized they are. There's 100+ people on their team. There's 26 people on my team at that event, if not more. People come to me and will text me midweekend or come say hi. Hey, did you see that you guys posted this? No, I haven't seen it. I have like 2 guys between me and what's the output going on to Facebook, and I'm not going to overstep them and get in their way. And I trust them to do their job. So, like, for a crazy scenario like Saturday night, when rain at any other racetrack would have been fine, but at that parking lot where it was not draining. To make that decision did take a little while because they have to go through so many channels to get up to the right people, for the right people to get involved, and for those right people making the key decision, including the series owner, to go, hey, are you okay? I'm not overstepping you, right? As my on-track marshal, as my overarching on-track race director, as, are you good? Like, I'm with you. I understand you're coming to me because you're thinking this. I'm thinking this. You're not mad that I'm getting involved and back down. And so you have a lot of people. Companies move slower. Overall, it's just really, really tough to set a culture and precedent in a matter of 3 sessions, and that's what they're tasked with every year. That's what CKNA Grands is tasked with every year. You have 3 rounds of heats to get a message across to hundreds of drivers and mechanics, basically 1,000 people, of what you want the Sunday product to be. And by Sunday, normally each year, things kind of clean up mostly.
Yeah.
But the first day is brutal. And when you have a really racy track, it's going to look like that.
So my husband just did the math on all the penalties. If they were protested, that would have been $229,500. Yike.
Yeah, that's a lot. Now, I did also get that was of the ones that stuck.
Right.
There were a rough estimation, right? Anyone can do this. We just used AI to get a scraper off Speed Hive and the official pasted results from the WhatsApp channel, confirming both of those. Believe about 75 protests resulted in a call added or a call removed.
Removed. Yeah.
How many more people threw money at the wall to try and get a penalty overturned or added and didn't get it? I don't know. That's not something that's released. Now, that's
Right.
something that
Right.
all the series we're talking about, maybe releasing that stuff in the future, and letting people know that they are doing their best. And there were, for the record, in terms of other notes from this, 9 disqualifications either from the day or the whole weekend for side-to-side unsportsmanlike swerving.
Yep.
There were 30 plus minor swerving infractions. And I didn't even bother going through how many were specifically incident responsibility, heavy-handed penalties. Yeah. But I mean, what are you going to do? We had a guy who, we had multiple people have egregious offenses by Sunday, and it's like, paper slip. Come back next year. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll say where I finished, where I crossed the line. I wrecked Christy. I got a penalty for 5 seconds for wrecking Christy. I don't care. I got to check the checkered flag at Supernatch, and she ended up in the wall. So
we're basically at our time slot. Xander, let's do this again. I know that you're a busy man. We're about to get busy. Road race season always kicks off. That kicks off our 2026. So, are you going to? What's your next event? What's your first one for 26?
Oh, we got the one you're not going to. We got Apex NOLA here in a couple weeks.
Oh, I know.
But no, Apex NOLA, CKNA Winter Nats at Jacksonville. So that's actually a very light schedule for us. 2 races over 7 weeks. And then a very busy rest of the year. Pretty much all of the major events you saw with us will be back next year. Picking up the Apex series, picking up the FLKC series. We should hopefully be out west a little bit more. I don't know all of that details yet, but I know we're going to be there more. And to be honest with you, Christy, I stopped counting how many events that we do. I don't know how many we're going to end up at. I don't know where I'm going to end up at. I know we're going to do a lot, and we're going to try our best to kick ass and keep going. So,
Xander, thank you for all that you do, all that you've done, all that you continue to look forward to doing. We will have you again on our podcast. I have Lake Speed coming to us in January after Daytona. I'm trying to get a former IndyCar driver on with us as well. I'm working through his schedule, making sure that he has plenty of time after the Daytona 24 to join us. Xander, are you game to come back?
Yeah, well, it's either me and you were talking for hours on the phone, or we're doing it on air, right? So
that's right.
I'll be back.
I'm going to have to feed Daniel the next time. He's
tell him I'm sorry,
man.
Well, it's you, the girl that likes to yap, and you're a knucklehead that gets paid to yap, right? So this was doomed from the start, right? We were going to go overtime. Tell him sorry.
Xander, we're going to do this again. We got a lot of questions that came in. If you go to my personal page and scroll through those, there's some questions I'd love to see you answer for those guys, either privately or right there on the feed. Everyone, I cannot thank you enough. Jeff Wetzel, we're going to talk, buddy. I got something for you. Everybody who gave us questions and gave us input, I can't thank you enough. Having knowing that you guys are having a good time like we are, that's very important to me. But right now we're going to thank our sponsors because they make the wheels go round. Obviously the podcast, Drive Your Line Kart Sport and Motorsports Talent Development. Wanted to make a quick announcement while that's up. I have a young man from our kart shop class who is joining us as a working student with the Drive Your Line Kart Sport team, and he's going to be going to races, working in the shop. This is a working student position, and we're really excited to have our program grow. Howard Stewart, Howard's back up. He's on with us this year. We're going to keep him around for a long time. He definitely deserves it. Looking for 4 cycles, 206, one of the leading engine builders in the country, is Howard Stewart Racing Engines. Be sure to look them up. Boxo Tools made sure that we were equipped with the appropriate amount of tools, what we needed, and that has actually become a very integral part of our kart shop class. Obviously, Superior Synthetic Oil, FHS Oils. Daniel has done a beautiful job in bringing this iconic brand back to the sport, and we're very happy to see them support the events. He's also starting a little live stream of his own that I'm very anxious to see. If you haven't seen my photographs on my personal page about Doorstep Peppers, their products, man, he has the best darn spices, and they're in individual spice groups. He does mixes and blends, and they are very complementary to any protein or vegetable product. We use them on the, in the rig at the track. They are very good. If you haven't looked up Doorstep Peppers, please do so. Tell them where you found the information. And of course, the American Kart Racing Alliance, AKRA. We will see that series kick off at NC Car next year. We're looking forward to going back on the road with those guys. Best road racing around. And the other national program in the United States with the largest number of classes and events, American Kart Road Racing Alliance. Guys, I'll see you in a couple of weeks after Christmas. Have a great day. See you in Daytona, and thank you for watching.